How you doing? This is Dick. Okay, this is just going to be a quick video on how I modify an axe head. It's just one way to do it. Okay, two ways to do it. Just real quick, nothing too hard about it. This is just a standard no-name axe head. One thing I'm going to try to do is maintain the ring, if you can hear it. And that ring comes from the hardened steel in the axe head. If I heat it when I cut it too much, it'll lose that ring. I will modify it to change the shape of the axe head, but also to get a second piece out of it that will be a war hammer or a hammeroon, pickaroon style piece. I haven't decided what I'm going to make out of it yet for sure. But the top of the axe head I'm going to cut off, something like that, around those lines there. And then I'll have that bottom section too. So I'm going to do it twice. A large one and a small one, similar in pattern, kind of a father-son sort of axe head. Alright, one thing I like to do when I am modifying something is I take a dry erase marker and I just kind of sort of just draw what I want on it. So this won't be the final thing, I'll actually measure it out, but when I'm thinking about the design, I'll just draw on it something I want to, kind of a shape I want. So this bottom part will be that war hammer, the top part will be the axe head, and I do want a little bit of the hardened steel to be on the war hammer part. And then I'm going to cut this with an angle grinder. Okay, just to make it simple here, I want the goal is if I screw anything up, I want to screw up the war hammer, not the axe head. So what I'm going to do for this big one is I'm just going to go the width of this square here on the thick side, which is just over half of the width of the bottom. So I want the thicker side on the axe. So I'm just going to draw a little bit of a line there down to about where I want it to bend. Something like that. I'll just come in and draw that. Yeah, I know it's not perfect. Okay, and then I'll pick a spot on the tip here that I want it to end, and I want the full blade size, blade length, the bit. So I'm going to come down to about here, which goes into the hardened area. You can see the hardened area is slightly a different color there from the vinegar wash that I put it in. I'm going to go from that straight edge to that tip there, something like that. Just kind of round it out. So that's going to be the final shape as I double check it here of the warhammer, pickaroon, hammeroon, whatever you want to call it, and the axe head, which I think will make a nice shape axe head. And then I can come in later and grind it and reshape anything I need to reshape, straighten things out, all that. With the little guy, okay, I'm just going to eyeball it. I want somewhere, I'm going to go with maybe about here. I'll just make a mark so I can see it. And then I'm going to feel from the back. Well, that's actually about the same size. I'm going to go a hair up from there, just because I don't want them to be identical widths at the back and different at the blade size. So I'm just going to go a little bit up, put a mark there. Give it an approximate measurement. That mark, it's about 1.25 inches, almost exactly 1.25 inches. Well, yeah, so we'll go 1.25 inches. I'll come down here to right before it starts to curve up again, and I'll go 1.25 inches. I'll look at it, and I think that does bevel up there a little bit. So I'm just going to drop it down, say 1.5 inches. Alright, I should be good. That line to that line. We'll see what it looks like. That's about dead center there. So I'll cut on this side of the line. Little arrows just so I remember. And that should even it out. Well, enough. Okay, so I'm gonna go from here about, because that's the way I like the look there. And I want to bring it down to right about there. So actually I'm going to back that off to about here, I think. Something like that. There. And I'll round this off a little bit here. Okay, that's the first head. That's the small hatchet. Let's see, I'll have to clean that up a little bit. But I expected that. It's hard to make these angles with a 4-inch grinder cutoff blade. Here's the quote-unquote warhead. Hammeroon, pickeroon, fit together once upon a time like that. Apart. Now I just got the big one to do. Actually not. Kind of like it a little bit here. Looks pretty good. Ground my fingernail down with a grinder. Not sure how that happened. All right. Let's see how we did. A little bit of a, still has a ring to it. Expect it to be a little different because it's not as much metal. Sounds good to me. I don't know if this will have a ring. A little bit maybe. Try that. Little ring. There it is. Had making too much contact with it. There we go. Nice. A few things you want to think about when using an angle grinder to cut something like an axe head is, let's see, you want to go slow. You want to toss on a bunch of water, keep it cool. for the curved parts, you know, remember the blade's flat. You know, 4 inches. It's hard to make it curve. You just gotta go real slow. It's probably better if you do a straight angle, curve it later. Also watch out for parts of the angle grinder itself that might ride along the top of your project, because the blade, as it wears down, the grinding disc as it wears down, of course it's going to get shorter and shorter and get closer and closer to other parts of the tool, you know, so it'll end up riding along the side of it. Other than that, keep it cold, use protection, glasses, gloves, lots of water to protect your work. But like I always said, I'm not an expert on anything. This is just the way I do things. Okay, all I was doing here is using the grinder to clean up the edge of the axe head where I made the cut. It's getting close. Still could use a little bit of work, but being it's getting so close, I may just move to a file for the rest. I don't know if you can see it from there from the distance, but this is the smaller one. I also was taking off some of the mushrooming around the hammerhead that happens when they use it as a hammer. There are hatchets and that are, you know, use the hammer pull. A lot of them are just made to stabilize the axe when it's in motion. So they're not always meant to be used as a hammer. You can see there's some nicks from the cutoff wheel along the edge here. I'm just filing them down with a little rounded file here, and it's going to end up, the way I'm doing it's going to end up leaving me with a little beveled edge here, a little rounded edge. And I'm going to match that on the other side. I think I'm going to leave it. I could take it back to the grinder, flatten it out, but I'm kind of liking the rounded edge. But I do have a few nicks to work out of it, as you know, currently. I just started with the filing. You can see took off some of the mushrooming, attempted to flatten out the pull. I'll have to figure out what to do here, because I have a nice square edge and then the natural rounded edge that was on the axe head. So I'll probably end up trying to match that at the bottom, round it off. Okay, what I'm doing is using the belt sander, just to kind of smooth out some of the rust pits. I don't know if you can see too well there, but there's a little bit in here. Both sides had a spot in the back. This one had a large spot right here, this side. See, there's a little bit left there, but I'm working to get it out a little bit. I might just leave that, it's not too bad. And then towards the front, I haven't hit that too hard yet. I'll do a little bit more on both sides. This is the first side, I think. And just a little bit more in the fronts, and then I'll go to hand sanding for that. I was using a hand file for these. What I did was I took a board and a clamp, and I clamped that down like so, but to a table. And once that was clamped down, I was just riding the file across the side. And I did clean up quite a bit. Took quite a bit of the pits out with that. Just leveling it down. Make sure I don't go too thin, which I don't think I'm going to have too big of a problem with this. I did that for a while, and then I actually ended up getting the belt sander. So I'm using that now. It's easier, a little quicker. But for some of the other stuff, some of the details, I think I'm going to bevel the edge a little bit in here. I'll use a hand, I'll hand file that, possibly on my knife.